allowing Egbert to take. Perfecto. Here we are.
Perfect. Good morning. Thanks, Saku, Priyanka, and Kirsi for again organizing a well-attended seminar on an early morning, and also thanks for all the audience for joining in. So we've got about 1.5 hours of interesting insights ahead of us, and this time I have the honor of starting, so let me share my screen with you, as I'll be sharing quite a few of data points, and that is typically easier to digest when you have it on a PowerPoint in front of you. So while my screen is loading, and I believe with a quick check that it is there, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. So a little bit of an introduction of myself and the organization that I lead before I take you through the rest of my presentation. So my background is that I'm a forester in Finnish and metsänhoitaja who came to Finland now about, give or take, 14 years ago. Married to a Finn, two Finnish kids, although I am Dutch myself. Besides forestry, my other interest is social psychology. Besides being a group CEO at Hofstede Insights, I also lead the international chapter at the Finnish HR Federation, and I'm an advisory board member at AmCham Finland. And I share those kind of insights because I basically move between business and HR all the time. And these two are typically not talking to each other. So in my function, I have the pleasure of trying to combine these two different worlds. The organization that I work for is a cultural consultancy, and what we have been doing for the last, give or take, 35 years, being a Finnish-Dutch organization, is using behavioral modeling to look into how do people behave in specific contexts. Of course, today my focus will be mainly on how that works out in Finland. Why we do what we do, because we believe that a lot of talk about cultural differences or workplace culture are precisely that. They are talks without any objective data, and that makes it a lot easier to talk about it, but a lot harder to make concrete business decisions. So our angle is always this business side of the equation. You could call it the employer view. We are a Finnish organization, as said. Our headquarters are here in Finland. I'm sitting in our Helsinki office here in Mikunkatu, but besides Helsinki, we work in about 60 plus countries around the globe with about 150 consultants and data technicians. There's 4 areas that we work in, and I'll be sharing some insights from each of these areas during today. One is regarding organizational behavior and how that links to retention, for example, and inclusion. One is related to cross-cultural communication, obviously very relevant in today's discussion as well. One is related to consumer behavior. Maybe I'll touch a bit on that when we talk about employer branding. And the last part is tailored behavioral research, which we tend to do for governments when we talk about, for example, integrating specific parts of a population. We work across a whole variety of sectors, so there's a lot of depth to the knowledge and width to the knowledge that we bring in the equation. Now, if we talk about diversity and inclusion, Priyanka will later on talk more about how companies can get started with these initiatives. I'll share a little bit more about the research component into it. If you look at the Nordics, obviously the benefits of living in the Nordics, and I'm not just talking about Finland, but also the other Nordic countries, is that people simply like the work-life balance of the Nordics. It's one of the main attraction factors. In the Nordics, Finland, based on 2018 data, is actually the most popular destination for a lot of foreigners to come to the Nordics, above Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. But all Nordics share a couple of challenging points, and these are the ones that you can see on the right-hand column, which is it's difficult to integrate. Language differences being one reason, but also cultural differences being another reason. Cost of living, career prospects. The reality is that in the Nordics, business life is simply less career-oriented than it is in many other countries. And this, at some point, causes people to lose their motivation and actually leave because there is a glass ceiling equivalent in Finnish organizations, in particular for foreign talent. This list basically is predominantly related to cultural elements, and I'll talk a bit more about what we mean with culture later on. Have a look at the picture in front of you. What is it that you see? And just use the chat screen to type in what it is that you see. And I'll open up my chat screen so I actually can see some of the answers coming in. Okay, I can see a lot of frogs, and some people also see something else. For those of you that do not see the horse, please tilt your head to the right. Now you should be able to see the horse. Yeah. Now, in essence, culture is obviously a very complicated thing, but in essence, when we talk about culture, we talk about taking different perspectives. Culture is never about right and wrong. It's always about what's the perspective you take on the differences that you have in front of you. Now, if we talk about, let's see if this moves forward. If we talk about culture as a complex topic, if we talk about organizations that employ multiple nationalities, this makes it more and more complicated for managers because they constantly need to be tilting their heads left and right to see the different perspectives of their subordinates. Because not everybody will see that what they experience in the same way. That means that managers need more time to look and investigate what are the different perspectives that people have. Why would managers choose to do so? Well, that's quite simple, because diversity can increase profitability with up to 30%. So quite a good incentive, you would say, from a business perspective. There is, however, one caveat, and that is that they can do this if they are well managed. Diversity on its own will actually decrease trust and will actually decrease productivity unless it is well managed. And this is a big if in the whole equation. And often you can see that this is actually not done. And you can see this from figures like the one in front of you, that a lot of the international placements, for example, fail due to cultural issues. Companies not having invested enough time and resources in educating their managers in how to help their people see the different perspectives. Now, losing people is also a business thing, because losing a talented employee is expensive. On average, it can take up to 3 annual salaries to replace a talented person with a new person, because you need to look for new people, you need to onboard them, etc. Now, if we talk about diversity and if we talk about retention, the key point here is teams need to be managed well, and that means managers need to understand different mindsets. Understanding the mindsets, however, is not enough, because you also need to align this with whatever it is that a team or a company is supposed to do. Companies do not exist for the benefit of their employees. They exist for the benefit of stakeholders, which are also employees, but also the owners, shareholders, and society. It also means that managers would need to take much more time in understanding how do emotions work, because if we talk about culture, in essence, it's about different emotional preferences that people have. In order to understand that, you need to take the time to understand them. Now, obviously, this relates to empathy, and in order to build empathy, because it doesn't come natural, in order to show empathetic behavior, managers need to be managers. And this is one of the key points for Finnish companies in particular, where managers are also typically expected to still act and do. They are supposed to be the expert. And the reality is, when you are the top expert, you cannot also manage the other experts. You don't simply have enough time for that. Now, you can see this again from research that indicates that globally, up to 65% of managers indicate that managing cross-cultural diversity, or cultural diversity, is actually one of their biggest challenges. In Finland, however, this figure is even higher. It's close to 75%. So there is a shout out for help. Managers want to have more help in handling their diverse teams. Now, if we talk about diversity and successfully managing it, this quote basically gives a nice message that successfully managing nationally diverse teams is dependent on an organizational culture which enables managers to manage in a way which addresses personal and organizational needs. In other words, companies can purposefully, or organizations for that matter, purposefully build organizational cultures that give managers enough time to spend time diving into emotional understanding. Building an organizational culture that does not have that time is a clear sign of different business priorities, because culture can be molded inside an organization. So it's simply a choice. The important thing is that companies and managers would need to investigate time and invest time in balancing what they do with why they do it and how it makes people feel. And again, at the risk of repetition, this means managers need to have time. Now, if we look into a little bit more detail for Finland in particular, how relevant is culture for the successful integration and therefore retention of international employees inside your organization? And this is based on data from Finnish HR people. As you can see, most of them indicate actually that this is very relevant. So the good thing is that there is an understanding in the HR environment that cultural understanding and integration are related. However, if you then look into the investment companies make, on average, this is in Finnish organizations close to about 100 euros per person. And this is not really a budget. Especially if you look at the next figure, which is that actually this Henry survey indicated that up to 76% of Finnish managers are not thought to be well prepared enough to manage diverse teams. They've never actually gotten any formal training in managing a diverse team. Now, one lesson here is that I think we can agree that in a business, things that are important require budget. 100 euro training budget is not a budget. Basically, you can just as well go to Stockmann and buy yourself a gift card. Because the actual figures from a business point of view is that in order to attract and onboard a talented person in a team, on an average Finnish salary, we're looking at sums of about 20 to 30,000 euros of employer costs regarding the time it takes before people become productive. Losing an average person, if we take the equation of 3 times annual salary, will mean that losing a talented person because they are leaving the company, because they don't feel part of the team or the company, etc., will cost up to 150,000 euros. Now, is 100 euros sufficient? I don't think so. Now, this basically means it is a business equation, and HR sees the need. At the same time, HR fails to make it into a business equation for leadership to provide more budget. If you know that a diverse team can create up to 30% more profit, just make the calculation in terms of how much money do you want to put in making sure the team is not just diverse from a checkbox point of view, but actually works in a diversity attractive way. Now, if you look at diversity and inclusion and you talk about selling this concept inside an organization, let's have a look at a popular company that has published a fantastic booklet, they say, about their culture, the Netflix Code. 2 words that stand out, freedom and responsibility. But what does freedom mean? It is easy to use words, but what do the words mean? In this case, does it mean that I can take the initiative to take actions? Do I get any guidance? What does it mean? In other words, are companies able to express in concrete behavioral terms what is expected? If we talk about responsibility, how do I know if I can get the things right? What are the sanctions for doing the wrong things? Are responsibility and authority clearly aligned? One of the biggest challenges that we've seen in Finnish organizations is that it is more and more becoming known that you need to do employer branding and you need to use nice terminology, but then they fail to express that in concrete behaviors and guidance for people in terms of understanding the words they use. Now, if you look at recruitment, recruitment is basically a sales job. You basically just make the numbers, and especially in startups that got funding, it's all about numbers. You just need to make sure you get enough people in. But how many recruiters are held to account if people are still in their jobs 2 years or 3 years down the line? Not many. And this is basically a business issue, because it is easy to sell a job relatively. But it doesn't actually mean anything if you don't have a concrete understanding of the team culture in which people are being placed. Are they ready to accept somebody that is very, very different? Now, we know from LinkedIn research that up to 36% of people leave their organizations because of issues with culture fit. And that basically also links to leadership acceptance and career opportunities. And in a nutshell, this is that table that you can get also from LinkedIn. Lack of career opportunities, unsatisfied with senior leadership, unsatisfied with the work environment. A lot of this again boils back down to unconsciousness in making culture and cultural differences tangible. Now, some specific Finnish challenges and solutions here before I get to the end of my presentation. Over the last, give or take 5 years, we've analyzed about 100 Finnish organizations, and on average, they face 3 concrete issues. Number 1, language. Any organization that works internationally but demands Finnish language as a requirement is to all likelihood having a dysfunctional organizational culture. Why? Because from the research we've done, any organization where Finnish is needed but has a functional culture will find ways around the language issue in the beginning. That means they will hire people, and over time, let's say a 2 to 3 year period, they will help people to acquire the language on the job. To require Finnish language up front in an internationally working organization is a symptomatic description of a dysfunctional organizational culture. Finns themselves don't feel well enough prepared. There is a lot of willingness, but there is a lot of unknowingness with regards to what do cultural differences actually mean for me? What does it mean for me if I'm the manager and I get a foreigner in my team? Growth. The larger the organization gets, the more HR in particular as a role becomes an administrative function and forgets that one of its key advantages is that HR has the ability to help people grow. But if HR is preoccupied and forced to enforce administrative regulations, of course, they won't have time to listen to people. And this is one of the biggest pitfalls in larger organizations. Managers don't have the time to listen to people. HR doesn't have time to listen to the people because HR is busy following employment regulations to the letter and not to the spirit. And that means people are left feeling totally unsupported. And all of this, again, boils down to cultural issues. There is not enough clarity within organizations and towards the labor market on what can people expect when they enter this particular team, this particular organization, and false expectations up front create a very, very good breeding ground for people leaving dissatisfied after 6 to 12 months in the job. And the reality is, from a business point of view, nobody will add value in their first 6 months on the job because they're still learning, and so should they also be doing. So the key point is you need to keep people employed longer in order, from a business point of view, to make sure they are as predictive as they can. Now, coming back to the language part, do language groups create differences, ghettos, so to say? Well, actually, not really. But the bigger the organization becomes, the less people feel listened to, the more they will look for security among an in-group. And yes, then you will start seeing language groups if the organization doesn't pay enough attention to it. And that means that on paper, you will have your diversity checkbox checked because you have enough different nationalities, but in reality, people don't actually mingle. So you can't profit from the fact that you have different cultures on board. Coming back to the learning question, is the organization learning from you? And this is not just a cross-cultural, but also a generational issue. Younger people like to be listened to a lot more than older people tend to have as a requirement. And here we can see again the same. The larger the organization gets, the less people feel that they are actually listened to as an individual. Now, coming to the slowly to the end. If we talk about cultural preparedness and retention is not just impacted by individuals and organizations, it is also cultural, because what we can see is that in certain cultures, we call them uncertainty avoidant cultures, either low, meaning they take life as it is, versus high, meaning they like to prepare for everything. People that come from low uncertainty avoidant cultures, Denmark, Singapore, US, people are more likely to change employers. So it's natural. You will have a higher attrition rate. Therefore, also only those rules that are actually monitored will be put in place. People will bypass rules in order to get to results. All of this is something that you can expect as an organization, and therefore you can be mentally prepared for it and choose whether or not you want to take that risk. Countries that have higher integration figures into Finland, Russia, Somalia, Syria, they are all cultures that have more uncertainty avoidance. And that you can see in the labor market because people are much more likely to stay with their employers for a much longer time. People need rules. And this is one of the biggest pitfalls for Finnish startups. When they employ people from high uncertainty avoidant cultures, they don't have any rules because it's not cool, it seems. But not having any rules can lead to an emotional misfit because people feel lost. They feel they have no structure. Procedures have to be clear, and if they are stated, they need to also be followed up on. This is again a Finnish cultural peculiarity. Finnish managers might give instructions, but very, very rarely do they actually inspect if those instructions are being followed. And this creates emotional dissonance with people from cultures that need this inspection. Why? Because an inspection means it's important. The point here is that it takes HR, or will take HR to make more time available to more carefully calibrate their HR practices, because you cannot have, unfortunately, one and the same practice for everybody in exactly the same way. And this picture nicely summarizes it. And basically what the picture talks about is that if you want, and if as an individual and an organization, you are serious about giving people equal opportunities, then you do need to treat people differently. And this is a paradox because we all start somewhere different. And also if we look at foreigners, often talked about as one group, maahanmuuttajat, they are not one group. They have very different emotional needs. And as an organization, you can actually plan for this in your recruitment practices and your diversity practices. The good thing is that you can actually anticipate this. Cultural trends can be anticipated. You might say, yes, but we're all individuals. Yes, we are when we're alone. When we work in a group, we are no longer just an individual. Group pressure, in a lot of cases, will take over. Now, to finish it up, the path forward to increase retentions of both foreigners and Finns, for that matter. HR would need to be educated on mindset issues from a group perspective. HR knows a lot about psychology, but typically social psychology is not a particular field of expertise for a lot of HR people. HR also needs to be able to make a better business case in order to obtain more money to keep people retained, because it's nice to recruit people, but if they don't stay, money is wasted. Managers would need to be educated that the what and the how are two different things. What managers do is actually the same all across the world. They should motivate their team. But how they go about it depends on the traditions and the culture of the particular countries involved. Finnish workforce would need to be educated when foreigners join a team on what might change, because to leave it up to chance will set them up for failure, and that's not fair. Similarly, for foreign workforce, what to expect when working or being a first foreigner in a Finnish organization, so that we can anticipate what comes and are not surprised by it. The point is that you don't want to leave it up for chances. And as hopefully indicated, cultural issues are one of the key failure indicators for companies. So they're quite important. First aid is important. That's why it's obligatory in many organizations. And that's also why our advice is to have cultural training mandatory, if not for everybody, at least for top management. And this is because cultural diversity and successful operations, they do not just happen. As mentioned before, if it is not well managed, then results will typically be worse. Trust will actually go down. And that is the reason to be on top of it and not to let yourself be led by cultural clashes. And to summarize it, language won't change this. Because if we would say in Finnish, ja vaikka me puhumme suomea, me emme välttämättä ymmärtää toisiamme. Whether we speak Finnish or not, we might still not understand one another. Cases, Netherlands and Belgium, we both speak the same semi-Dutch language, but in our behaviors and our cultural value preferences, we are diametrically opposed, even if there is a united language. Same with the USA and the UK. Same with people speaking fluent Finnish and native Finns. Language does not take away cultural differences. It might actually make things worse. That's what I had to share from my point of view. One point to remember, if you want to increase diversity and the retention inside your organization, make sure managers can manage and that they have the time for that. If you want to know more about anticipating cultural differences, we have free resources on our main website, hofstadeinsights.com, where you can compare up to 100+ countries. And if you are leading a small and mid-sized enterprise company, for the EU, we have built a cultural learning platform on cubin.eu with lots of interesting things to read and try out. That's it from my point of view. And with that being said, I think I'll give the word back to either Priyanka or Saku.
Thank you so much, Egbert. It was such a wonderful presentation. So hello, everyone, from my end here, Priyanka this side. Let me share my presentation, and meanwhile, already apologize that I have Finnish summers give me nice allergies, and I forgot to take my antihistamines, so I might be a little bit. Okay, let's see. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay.
Now we can.
Okay, so welcome once again, and thank you, Egbert, because you already mentioned a lot of things that I would like to mention over here. But like he said about culture and how important culture is, I'm going to talk about in this presentation a little bit about how to attract diversity and why is it beneficial for internationalization. But before I go forward with it, because culture is so much important for even attracting diversity, because if you have a good and inclusive culture, people and individuals, they will come to you. You don't have to attract them that much. So before I start, I want you to all, if you have a pen and paper or if you have a chat box, like you can write it on the chat, to just write culture comes first, and then we will go ahead. I'm not sure if I can see the chat here, but I will trust you that you're going to write culture comes first so that we all understand what is important and then we move forward. Okay, so I hope you have written that by now. And let me start with introducing myself. My name is Priyanka Banerjee, that's how it's pronounced. And I'm originally from India. I'm a diversity inclusion coach, and I have a background as a tech consultant. And apart from that, I also am on the board of International Working Women of Finland, and I work with the European Digital Society as well to create inclusive digital society across Europe. And as a background, like I was a tech consultant in Finland, and recently, like around 3 years ago, I switched from being in IT to work for diversity and inclusion. So this is my company called Business With. We are helping companies become more diverse and actually building an inclusive workplace culture for them. So we're doing different kind of things. And the point is that this all came because of my experiences working with a lot of different companies. And after that, later, when I started this company, also working with a lot of companies, and exactly what Egbert said, I agree to all of that, that we still need a lot more work to be done in Finland regarding having a diverse and inclusive culture. So today we're going to discuss about two important things. First is why diversity is important to internationalize your business. So Egbert already mentioned why diversity is important, what are the benefits, it brings you more money, but specifically, if you are one of those companies who are going international, how diversity will help you in that, and then how you can attract diversity. And if you're having any chats on Twitter, please, you can hashtag Future Finland, hashtag Business With, and we can talk there later after this presentation as well. Okay, so once again, just to remind you why diversity is important, we have all said it over and over and over again, but I would still mention it, that having diverse teams improves the performance of your company, have more revenue, like you can generate more profit, you make better decisions, given that they are well managed and given that you provide a good culture to the people that are coming to your organization. And no matter if it's whoever, every individual, homogeneous or heterogeneous, they need to have a good culture. So then what is so important about diversity specifically in internationalization of your business? So to understand that, let's understand first what are the major challenges when we start internationalizing our business. And I'm in that mode, so I can actually give you my own experiences and discuss about that. So the first thing, like now I started thinking, okay, Finland is such a small market. If we want to grow, we have to go abroad. Let's check out neighboring countries. So the first challenge that comes to me is the lack of the knowledge of the local market. I am aware of the Finnish market. I'm aware of from where I am, from the Indian market. But if I want to go somewhere else, I don't have enough knowledge about the local market. So how can diverse individuals, international talent, help you in this? They can help you reduce this barrier by reducing the information barrier. So when you don't know anything about the local market, and if you have people from that particular market or the markets around, so you can have like similar cultures around, they will reduce your information barrier so much. And they will also provide you more experiential knowledge, because you can read all about different cultures and different countries online, but the experiential knowledge is really essential when you are going to have business abroad. So that's the number one. What's next? The next is lack of network in the local market. So of course, when I don't know anybody in that market, how am I going to start a business? Because I need to know some people. So what I would do, I would go to someone who knows someone, and then they will connect me to someone. And that's a really long process. What if we have people in our team from different backgrounds who already have networks across borders? So you are not only hiring an employee, you are hiring an employee and the networks. So think from that perspective, that how beneficial it could be that they can potentially bring you suppliers, customers, partners, and even if they don't bring you any of those, they can still bring you some valuable network that might help you in your business. And cross-border operations. So once you decide that you are moving international, you are going to start the business over there, having people that belong to that culture or having international people, they already makes you easier to understand the culture, the values, the language, the working style of the people over there. It also helps you understand your consumers better. And what is like the first thing should be thinking about the consumers or your customers. And if you can provide better customer service, then it's much better. You know, it's like your brand reputation is going to increase so much better. And also, you will be better to deal with the local response of the product. So in case your product has negative or positive response, you will be able to adapt quickly because you are already into the mindset of working with differences. And as we already saw, one of the biggest challenges that companies faces when they go international or even when they hire diverse individuals is cross-cultural communication. And having people from different backgrounds into your organization, they can help you with this verbal and non-verbal communication. So if you are today planning to go to India and expand your business, or like let's say Italy, having people from around that region who understand the nonverbal communication, even if they don't understand the verbal communication, it's much easier for you to adapt to that and eventually learn by seeing. And they can also be the bridge between the two parties. So you can already replace the need of international operational managers. And if you don't have money, for example, if you are into in your bootstrapping and you're going international and you don't have enough resources, you can utilize your resources within the company to have these kind of roles. And of course, then you can have better communication because you will understand more about cross-cultural aspects. One, because you already have that person in the company who is going to help bridge this barrier, but also because you have been interacting with different people so much that you yourself develop and get the skill of having a better cross-cultural communication. So when we are going international, there is like two dimensions. So when you are going into foreign entry point, initially you have a higher perceived risk because you don't know about the market, you don't know the cross-cultural issues, and so you generally put less resources. And then after you learn more about the market, you try to have high resource commitment because now you know a little bit more about the market. This might take some time. For some companies, it takes less time. For some companies, it might take like years. Having these people, having a national or diverse individuals will reduce this foreign entry point for so much. You don't have to wait for 5 years, for example. You already know about the market, you know a little bit about how they work, their culture. You are so much ahead into going international once you have those people on board in your company. So that is specifically why it's essential if you are going international. But if you are not going international, you say, hey, I think Finland is a great market. We just want to stay here. We don't want to go anywhere. So what? But still, if you want to future-proof your business, like what we heard in the last presentation, we don't have much choice. If you want enough people excuse me, in your team in next 10 years, or you need talented resources or skills, you will have to have diverse individuals in your company. There is no other way. That is the way that you have to eventually go through. So then how do you actually attract these people? And it's like a really, really difficult and overwhelming question. Oh my God, do I have to do this? What will I do? It's too overwhelming. But it doesn't have to be overwhelming. And let's see why it's not that overwhelming if you go, if you take a step-by-step approach to it. So let's discuss about 3 steps. I crystallize and try to crystallize into just 3 steps, but the 3 steps have some steps. And this is mostly for the company who are not yet very diverse, and they are looking to internationalize, and they are looking to be more diverse. But if you are here, hey, I already have so many diverse people in my company, but if you're still looking to expand, and if you're still looking to attract more people, then it would actually suit you as well. So let's see, what's the first step? The first step is to set up an intention and align your values. So I have been working with some companies, and a lot of companies, when I ask them that, what are your company values? Did you think before starting this to put the D&I in the value of your company? And they're like, we're not sure. So that is something that we don't want to do. The first thing that we want to do is, when you want to attract people, you need to show them that you're open. And to show them that you're open to receive people from different backgrounds, you need to have it in your culture, in your values, that we support different diverse individual backgrounds in our organization. And how you're going to do it is you're going to also show your commitment to your management. You need buy-in from your leaders. That is super important. If your leaders do not agree to what you're doing, it's not going to work. You need to show this commitment to your team so that they also are mentally prepared that this is going to happen, and they need to adapt and educate themselves as well. And then also your stakeholders, your board of directors, everybody needs to be aligned, and having this goal and value that we are going to be a diverse and inclusive company. Put it down, write it down. So let's write it down now. Let's not leave things for future. In your chat, just write down, I am committed to educate myself and others about diversity and inclusion at my workplace. And you can just write the whole thing, or you can write I commit on the chat, so we have your written commitment that you are going to do it. And why I write here commit to educate is because the first step is to educate yourself that what you're going to do, what is it, how is it beneficial for you, for your company specifically, so you can customize it. And so let's do that. Let's take like 20 or 30 seconds and do that. And because I can't see the chat screen, Kirsi, maybe if you see, let me know that people are writing. And so okay.
Yes, they are writing.
That's great. So I can also write that I commit, or I can say it here, it's been recorded. So I am committed to educate myself. And the other is about diversity and inclusion at my workplace. So when you have it written down, when your company has the intention to do it and you have written it down, it becomes really real. So I hope that now that you have written it down, it has become real for you as well. So now that we have set up the intention, and thank you everyone for trusting and committing here, we can move on to what next. What can we do next? So the next step that we can take is take small actions every day. We don't have to overwhelm the things. And that is something I listen quite a lot, that, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. We have to think about cultures and like people and gender and their sexual orientation, and then creating a culture. This is too much. If what if we can't do all of this? We don't have resources to do all of this. And it's like you don't have to do everything at once. So be crystal clear that we can take small actions every day and move forward step by step. So there are some things that you can do is you can lead the way and start communicating what you are doing, because people need to know what you're doing. And it has been seen that when you start taking actions and you communicate to the team that you are working towards building a good culture, they get more, their satisfaction increases, they are more motivated, and they actually want to collaborate and participate in it. So start doing that. You can start educating yourself, like we already set up the intention for. Educating yourself on cultural competence, on building good cultures, especially for leaders. If you're a leader, try to be proactive and educate yourself. Get comfortable with the idea. So if you have never had any international or diverse individual in your organization, if it is really homogeneous and you think that our teams are not really comfortable at the moment, you can try to get people comfortable slowly. And how you can do that, for example, you can hire some international freelancer, or you can have international speakers coming and speaking for your team, or you can have part-time workers. There are a lot of ways you can invite industry specialists from different organizations to come and talk to you. So there are a lot of ways when you can have your teams commit and get comfortable that, okay, this is not that difficult. It's okay. We can do that. And like I saw in the last presentation, that language is often thought about a really big deal. It's definitely a token excuse. And what you can do is, if you really think that it's not possible, try having like just one meeting once in a week in English or in a common language. What it will do, it will make you understand that it's not a very big deal and people can cope. So having these small practices will really help you have a good and a better culture, or take you towards, get you started to do something good. And if your team is really, really homogeneous, please tweak your referral system, because homogeneous people with homogeneous networks are only going to bring homogeneous referrals to your organization. And if you want to attract diversity, it's not a very good thing. So if you have that system, try to tweak it and make it so that you can attract more diverse individuals. So when I talk about networks, I want to have another small exercise with you all. If you have like a pen and paper or your mobile phone, you can just make note. You don't have to put it on the chat. And I give you some time to just think and write down the name of 5 people you trust the most outside your family. So let's do that. Let's take like 20, 30 seconds again. Whoever comes to your mind, just 5 people outside your family whom you trust the most. Let's do that. Okay, so if you're really thinking from your quickly, you get the correct answer. And now if you have the name of the 5 people that you trust the most. First, if you are finding it difficult to have 5 people, it means that you definitely need to broaden your network. But if you have 5 people you trust, now you can think about yourself. It's a self-exercise to understand how homogeneous or diverse your circle of trust is. Is it like all the people you trust look like you? Are they like from the same gender, from the same country, speak the same languages? Understanding that will give you like a chance to reflect that what I need to do. I need to broaden my network. I need to build more trust with people, because that is going to give me an understanding of how to deal with diverse individuals. And you can today go home and, well, you are at home. My God, this is not a live presentation. But today, after the presentation, you can go and check your social media accounts, for that matter. That who are the people you are you are talking regularly, or you are checking their feeds, how diverse they are, how homogeneous they are, just to understand that what you can do yourself to improve and broaden your network. Because once you broaden your network, you meet new people, your mind will open up a bit more, and you will be able to have a better understanding and a better cultural intelligence. So now that you have set up the intention, you are taking all the small steps. The last thing that you must do as an organization is invest in your efforts. And like Egbert said, 100 euros is not a budget. And I'm not putting here any particular, money or like a cap that you have to invest that much money, but you have to invest also in the efforts to put resources into it. And you need to be open and agile about it, that, okay, we want ourselves to grow. We want to go international. We want to be future-proof. We want to have the best people on our team, and we want our culture to be the best. So if you haven't yet, the best thing that you can do is hire an international talent. And there are so many places you can look for them, and you can have so many different kinds. Yeah, we are in 2020, which is not a very good year to mention, but anyways, you can have a full-time worker, but if you don't have that resource, you can have gig workers, freelancers, interns, part-time workers, project workers. Like, there are so many ways you can start and open the doors in your organization for that. And if you want to really attract people to your organization, your brand, your marketing, and your communication must be inclusive, and it must target the people that you are trying to attract. And start educating your leaders. So please, that's like a really important thing, not just for the organizations, but for the whole nation as a whole, because we are losing so much money. If you see in that way, we are not able to retain people. As per Egbert, we're losing 100,000 euros for one employee if you're not able to retain them. So think about it, and start educating your people and your leaders. And the best thing that I could say is, like, look at your company goals. So you don't have to listen to me, just look at your company goals, what you want to achieve, and how having inclusive goals or having a culture to build a good inclusive culture goals can support that. So for example, if you have a goal to increase your revenue and you look at where is it lacking, are your people not innovative enough? Is it difficult? There is a miscommunication somewhere, or we don't have enough people. So you can understand like how these small cultural things can impact your company goals. You can decide what goals you want to choose, and you can take it one step at a time. So you don't have to overwhelm it, but you can do it one step at a time if you think that it is too much. But the more you invest into building a good culture, the better you will get at it. So if you want to discuss more, then please ping me. You can contact me. And for today, this was it from my side. I hope that you all are able to attract really, really diverse and talented individuals. And if you would need any help, or if you want to know more, discuss more, please feel free to contact me. And thank you. I think I will hand it over to Kirsi now. Kirsi, are you there? I will stop sharing my screen. Okay.
Hello, everyone. We've been having a really good chat in the chat box. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. There's some really, really good points, and we were just about to start talking about whether you change something from the inside, or if you go and look for a diverse community yourself. And these are two ways to go about it. Certainly, we need more diversity in Finnish working life as well and Finnish business. And Egbert and Priyanka, thank you for sharing your tips on how to get there. I have some practical tips on, or practical services actually, to support employers who are thinking about taking the diversity step or internationalization leap, or however you want to put it. A little bit about myself. I work for the University of Helsinki as an international HR specialist, and I will be moving on to a project manager's position, supporting building national models for higher education institutes in just a few weeks. And I also have my own company, International Fox Agency, where we want to support internationalization, especially in SMEs, very much like Egbert and Priyanka. And we all have our specific things that we focus on. So it's great to also have this collaborative network around us. I'm going to now ask to present my screen. Here we go. Can you see my screen? Anyone?
Yes, we do.
The services and support for employers.
Yeah, that's true.
Excellent. So here I have listed a few public and private services that are around. Firstly, I want to introduce Talent Boost, which is a nationwide ecosystem already, where many actors like the state, different public and private organizations, higher education institutes, and so on, and of course individuals as well, discuss and want to promote not just talent attraction, but also talent retention. Now, we understand that there is already a lot of diverse potential and international potential in Finland and in the neighboring countries. And obviously, we need to attract more. We all know how big the labor shortages or the workforce shortage is going to be. But in this ecosystem, we're trying to bring in together different actors, individuals and organizations around this same topic, and figure out ways on a national level on how we can make things better and make things easier, and make sure that those who are already here can find employment or something sensible to do, and that how we can secure a productive and of course financially stable future for Finland. Because even though money is just one factor in life, we do need that to keep the country running. And with COVID, we have also seen that we need a whole bunch of different types of people in different types of roles to keep the country running. But so I recommend that you follow Talent Boost on social media, just the hashtag Talent Boost, or people who are related to that. For instance, all of us who are speaking here today, we are always pin some Talent Boost stuff online. And so here's a few things. I know Priyanka and Egbert talked about, I hope you don't mind if I say, in a way, the softer side of things. And this is really what we need to think about and focus on. It's not just about the money, but it's about making some sort of a difference and change in the whole country and the ecosystem. And is
Can
someone
I
want to comment?
check? Yeah, just a quick check. Can the others see the slides progressing?
No, I see the first slide.
Oh no, again.
It's in presenter mode, not in the view mode.
Yeah.
You should have said something.
Now I did.
Very, very, very late. What do you see now?
put it in the presentation mode. Maybe then we can still see the first slide.
What do you see now?
Vielä still.
Yeah, I think it's the easiest if you just use the presentation mode from the PowerPoint.
And what do you see now?
Public services.
Okay, so as I was talking for the past several minutes, this was the slide. Thanks for finally mentioning it. And I will just give you a minute to have a look at it. And again, I can't see the chat box, so if there are any questions or comments, I will quickly look at them later. My apologies, I obviously couldn't know that you couldn't see my slides, but I'm hoping that you see them now. So here are some of the public services that are on offer. In the Talent Boost ecosystem, we understand that there's a lot of small organizations that don't have a background in these things and might not have the resources to pay for a consultant or do everything with their on their own. And there's a bunch of services already in existence, and more are being created all the time that can help you take this step, or your organization take this step. For instance, there's the Talent Boost Index that's been made by Business Finland and Helsinki Region Chamber of Commerce. And that's a good starting point. It will help your organization see whether you're in the right, wrong way to put it. In which place are you? You're always in the right place to start. And this index will show you and suggest some next steps to you. So it will show you where you are and suggest some next steps and public services that you can turn to. There's a lot of interesting material for talent attraction in Finland Works. It's a toolbox by Business Finland, and also a lot of funding available from the public sector. Now, we talked about, during Priyanka's presentation, she mentioned, and in the chat we talked about specifically hiring international talent, maybe getting a trainee, or finding somebody in your team that can help you break into new markets. The Talent Explorer funding is funding that is aimed specifically at that. So you can hire somebody with that money. It's good to make use of all the public funds, obviously, because they are targeted at this issue and really earmarked, as we say in Finnish, for these activities. There's also support from the public sector for international recruitment and building your diverse and international community. You can contact EURES and the TE services. And then if you want to have a look at different good best practices, you can check the Talent Boost cookbook, for instance. And obviously you can come to any one of us and we will happily help you share any ideas we have heard of from our own ecosystem. And the Talent Boost cookbook has these different examples of organizations and different services or activities from all over the Talent Boost ecosystem. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to start big. You don't need to go big. You don't need to hire like 10 super diverse people that will rock the whole place. Like I mentioned in the chat, you can start with a trainee, for instance, somebody who adds something to your organization. and you can turn to the public services and they can help you with the practicalities. And obviously all of us, we can also help you with the practicalities or especially the cultural side of things. Here I want to mention a few specific regional services. In the Helsinki region or the Greater Capital region, we have International House Helsinki that has a multitude of services for both the individuals coming to Finland and employers. For instance, they have just started a new accommodation helpline. So this is often a big issue when people move to another country. Where are they going to live? And especially smaller businesses don't have the resources to help find a flat, or even bigger organizations. So now there's a helpline and individuals can call the helpline and get advice on how to find housing, or where, in which area would it be best for them to live, and so on and so forth. There's also a good spouse support program now by the city of Helsinki. It was started just this year. And if you click on the link, you will then find the page. And there's other activities in different areas in Finland. So it's not just the Greater Capital area where things are progressing and more services are developing, but also the coast, Tampere, Turku, up north, everywhere we have these good actions popping up and good new projects coming up too. And here is just a overview of all the services that they have in International House Helsinki. And
is it still on this page, public services?
No.
Is it?
No.
Okay, so we can see that page. At least I only see public services at the moment.
I really don't know what to do.
Can you put it on a presentation mode, like from the bottom down, if you see the presentation?
I did put it on the presentation mode.
Okay.
If you're using two screens, Kirsi, are you using two screens or one screen?
How do you mean?
So do you have just a laptop?
Screens.
Okay, so when you stop sharing, when you click share screen, you need to select which screen you want to show. So if you have the presentation in viewer mode on your big screen, you need to select that screen to show to the audience.
I had. This is really annoying. I'm gonna take off the other screen. Maybe that helps. See now.
Yes, we can see it now.
Now we can see slide number 3.
Yep, and my mouse went a bit berserk.
But you've been super fluent, so it's been easy actually to follow your presentation.
Thank you. Damn it. Sorry, I shouldn't say any nasty words. Okay, so I was talking about this, the last. You have seen this, yes?
Now we can see this.
You have never seen this before?
Nope. Sorry.
Okay. Well, that's life. I gave you a minute to look at something that clearly you weren't seeing earlier, so I will leave this at the very last. So here I was talking about the regional public services. And I was here where you can see the services from the International House Helsinki. And you can see that all the cities in the Greater Capital area are also participating. And here I've just added our businesses in case you want to reach us, even though obviously everybody has them in their slides, and Saku's going to talk about Talented in just a little while. And here you have my contact details, but I do want to finally show you the Talent Boost slide that I'll be talking about. Can you see it now?
Yes, right now the Talent Boost slide.
Okay. How is this so difficult always? So truly, I really want to recommend following and joining the Talent Boost ecosystem, because that's now one big happy family where we try to address these issues and take things forward. And if you're interested in these and your organization is interested in these, we need different voices in the Talent Boost ecosystem as well. And it's super important that we get the employer's perspective and the organization's perspective into the ecosystem, so that we can be sure that we are creating the right kind of services, that we are actually addressing a real need, rather than just thinking that, the reason for lack of diversity in this area must be whatever XYZ. If we have people from that area coming to tell us, then we know better what the real reasons are. And these public services and other services are sure to grow and continue, and there will surely be more. I always try to keep up to date on these things. So please follow me, connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and hopefully we can stay in touch and maybe collaborate in the future. That was all. Thank you.
Many thanks. I am almost sort of waiting for myself
Yes, it's now your turn.
enter into technical difficulty terrain. It's always a fascinating moment to be sharing the screen. Future of work. Here we are. Now the key is to hear that you are seeing it, and I start it from the beginning. Can you see it?
Perfectly. Yeah.
Perfect. So the last slot is with me, and we are now 14 minutes past 10. I think 10 o'clock. Half past is roughly the time when I'll be finishing, and then there's time for additional Q&A on top of the chat. And there's been some excellent discussion going on, so that's great. So my name is Saku Tihveräinen, and I'm now working at Talented as an executive talent agent. In other words, recruiting, finding digital leaders for different companies. And my hobby, I would call it these days, is the part-time PhD research that I'm currently progressing in different projects, and now having left the last or submitted the last paper in the last version a couple of weeks ago, I feel much easier to talk about it. If you would have asked that about my research 2 weeks ago, you would have heard a much grumpier voice. Let's put it that way. Very briefly about as soon as my screen moves forward, let's use this symbol. Very good. So in a nutshell, what Talented is, Talented provides growth services through software professional talent agency for the employed software professionals. Also, for software professionals, we provide independent contractor agency work, and then for companies we provide tech talent acquisition consultancy. So be that then actual needs of a company to hire new developers, or then to progress and develop the internal processes. Talented people can join in as in-house consultants. And now the newest addition is the digital leader recruitment that I just mentioned, and that's where I'm currently located in. Yes. So about this topic, Oikotie was partnering with us. Many thanks to Oikotie to publicize the film that was released in early June, and before the holiday, I was saying to Kirsi and Egbert and Priyanka that okay, I've said everything I want at this point about future Finland with this film, but then holidays do wonders. And after the holiday, I was saying to myself that it would be quite interesting to really have a look on the very recent information analysis data on what do we know currently of the future of work especially in the case of Finland. So hence this presentation. First, I would like to have a look on the near history, because it's sort of to predict what happens in the future. The near history often gives some good ideas how things are likely to develop. So McKinsey released this piece that I found quite interesting just recently. And they analyzed the development of the European job market, and really identified in Europe to be a patchwork of highly varied local city labor markets that has been increasing in size, which has then supported the most highly skilled individuals to find jobs and create new jobs and etc. Whereas then the low-skilled jobs, they've been growing as well in the dynamic and stable regions. So we're talking about the biggest cities that, for example, in Finland, we're talking about Helsinki and perhaps some of the other university cities. And then the biggest cities and the second, third, depending on the country and size, that have been more technology orientated regions. Employment growth has been concentrated then in a large handful, talking about the Europe of regions, and then as we're looking at it, what jobs are at risk. They are pretty much the same as that have been suffering from the pandemic, as are going to be at risk from artificial intelligence and automation. So looking at fields like manufacturing, sales, and other fields that are relatively easy to automate. In the 2020s, we are likely to face in Europe a shortage of skilled workers, in spite of this growing wave of automation, and then part of the reason being that about 4% of the workforce are due to retire by year 2030. And we're talking about the decrease, so higher higher rate will be retiring, but because of the baby boomer generation, that's the size of the job market, that it's the employees that's going to decrease. And the challenges that can be faced here in Finland as well is that to overcome the labor market mismatches in terms of skills and where people are located at. So the Helsinki region, for example, has massive potential to grow, but that requires high skills and more individuals than currently are in the region. And talking about then the long-term perspective, 2020s, where we're looking at more than half of Europe's workforce to face significant transitions in terms of technology. So there's many people who are going to be needing to learn new tech skills, and there's a lot of people who also need to start considering or then facing the prospect of actually changing their occupation in the mid or low skilled jobs. So at the EU level, the job growth in 2020s, and it's quite similar to Finland, is highly professional roles, scientific roles, technical roles, health sector, social work, education, and so we're talking about the technical roles, technical development, and then the roles that require some sort of a human empathy element. That is very, very difficult to replace by automation or AI. And that's the pre-pandemic analysis. So I'm still looking forward to sort of a new analysis to have a look on how things are going to prospected say this autumn. I presume there's going to be some analysis coming, most definitely. And this is based on the Eurostat and Oxford Economics and McKinsey Global Institute data. So then the future of work in Finland. Really, when you're looking at new jobs, new ventures, and etc., they are likely to be very likely to be based on technology. And even the hospitality sector, thinking about the likes of Wolt and different sites providing the platform to search for hotels and book for hotels and etc. And really thinking about in terms of the language used at the workplace, I think the lack of employees is the one element that starts to change drastically, kind of like the approach of the workplaces. So the language used, and once there is no individuals that can be recruited, as then this question is prioritized, and therefore technology, restaurants, construction industry, they're using other languages alongside the native ones, or have turned to using English, and this is outside the international business. And this change is going to be stronger in the future, but I'm still quite curious how it's going to develop. And looking at different roles, that if a person is considering, okay, which job or occupation or education to choose, the similar that we just touched upon, the technology plus health and other key occupations, which are hard to replace by automation. So using empathy, those are the ones that definitely have a relatively stable job future and alongside with basic service providers, and these roles mentioned, they are especially applying to the growing regions of Finland, and Finland obviously is not the same throughout as some of the quieter regions. They are then suffering from higher unemployment, and so sort of highlighting this field of technology again, that the question is that the qualifications required are quite high, and dedication to develop oneself in the field of technology, be that then in development or in projects or wherever, there's this utmost expectation that the brightest of the people, the brightest of the skills, will be hired in spite of the language, and English is being more and more prevalent there. And sort of repetition here, but key occupations and then basic service providers needed in the growing sectors, and there's a variance then to what extent, say in the key occupations, Finnish is and Swedish is emphasized, but at the moment it is emphasized to quite large extent because of the nature of the work, to serve the local population. But I expect at some point there to be trends as well to change. Basic service providers then being a bit different story, where we're talking about the lack of employees, so English being used much more. And then really the diversity and inclusion aspect is something that thinking about, say, the Anglo-American context, it's been emphasized more and more in terms of quite an inclusive element, gender and ethnicity and etc. But then in Finland currently, diversity and inclusion is mostly referring to gender, and I'm quite curious when there's going to be a trend to change with this regard. And then just to make it a little bit more concrete, what are the growing regions? Because again, Finland's not the same as the capital region, and this map highlights on the left the population change by region over the course of 5 years, 2015 to 19, highlighting the university cities, and then some exceptions, positive exceptions. And then on the right, the job change by region, and again the university cities highlighted, and then you can see the car factory just next to Turku, Uusikaupunki, and then in Lapland, where tourism has been providing more and more jobs. But the differences are quite concrete if you look at the population change, and the darkest red, over 5% loss of population, and equally with the job change, over 5% of the jobs being lost in the region over the course of 5 years. So the stories of Finnish regions are quite polarized to that extent. Okay, so looking further into the future, and again reminding us how far we've come in a very short period of time. Just reading the Andresen piece a few days ago, and that highlighted that to run a basic internet application cost about $150,000 a month in 2000, 9 years ago, a similar application was about $1,500 a month, and how I understand the basic internet application, I've tried some myself, different say application tools and etc. You're able to start with the very basic ones with a few euros per month to run it. So and it's now 2020. So thinking about the 2020s, further towards the end of the 2020s, we're going to be witnessing, I suppose, nearly limitless opportunities, and really, where the technology is developing, there the new opportunities lie in. So looking at what Deloitte highlighted, well, starting with the most recent discoveries, why AI hasn't been quite as potential as the hype has proposed some years ago. That the difficult problems can be easy for the AI solutions, but then the easy problems for people, the easy problems can be very, very difficult. And really then thinking about the 2020s, the best way to predict the future of work is to really invent it. And there's a lot of different developments currently taking place that are more and more linking people's work to different forms of automation or artificial intelligence, and so, for example, the chatbots are changing customer service. The deep medicine is changing the radiologists' work. Then machine predictions are changing the human decision-making process, and caregiving is already facing new tools, and there's a lot of potential, and also, of course, business to be made, and only time will tell, of course, how things are going to progress, and but really it's all about the question of why, and then trying to provide solutions, and we are then more and more changing from the simplistic notion of automation to linking people's work that used to be considered, say 20 years ago, that okay, computers not going to affect this type of work. Economists and recruiters, are fine examples whose work has already been shifted around to some extent with technology, and it will be affecting all jobs, and I think the one thing to take away from this presentation is that no job is not a static bundle of skills, but rather all jobs can be redesigned, and the processes affecting can be rethought and shared differently, and the most simplistic elements of the job role can be then given to take care of by the automation or then software, and of course the rise of the driverless cars, for example, is an interesting question. That at what point are we able to witness that? And again, we're facing the same issue there. The difficult problems, with regards to driving, they've been solved, but the easy problems, for example, you face some slush or snow, and and all of a sudden, we are then facing problems with artificial intelligence. Right, a little bit over time from what I just mentioned, and but my job, really, why I love my job is the fact that I am recruiting the people who are leading technology in different forms and different organizations, and they are then facing these questions. Okay, where should we take it further, and how can we make it profitable for the company, not just interesting, etc. So if you come across with topics like this on your recruitment table, I'm more than happy to share my insight and have a chat. So many thanks, and just to highlight, this recording is going to be shared on at least my own YouTube channel and on various LinkedIn accounts and etc. So I'm sure people will find this. Excellent. Many thank you. Right. Still hearing?
Yes.
Very good.
Yes, we're still here.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Yeah. Feel free to open your mic if you want to ask something.
And I'll just stop recording now. So if any questions come out live, we'll not be recording them.
Hello.